Welcome to Top of Mind. I am really excited to sit and chat with you today, and I think part of the reason I was thinking about it on my way here as to why I'm so excited is because typically some of the best chats that I've had on this podcast have been with people that I have a really long-standing relationship with or people that have no filter.
Great. You are in safe hands.
And I feel like although we've only recently met, you're the type of person that doesn't really have much of a filter, which I'm excited about. So thanks for joining me.
My team told me just before I came here, because we were putting together some ridiculous video, and Kai goes to me, "You really don't give a fuck, do you, Frank?" And I was like, "No, I really don't."
It's the best way to be. Have you always not given a fuck?
Yeah. You know what? I went through a period where I started to give some.
Okay.
But like one of my early years of school, I was such a weird little kid. Like I was so weird, and I was in drama, doing acting, and like some weirder stuff. And then I started thinking I had to be like, all cool, and then only a few years ago did I realize like, oh no, I got to just fully be me, which is fucking weird.
Was there a moment that you realised that you had to fully be you?
No, I don't think so. I think it was just like a lot of it came through from content. Like I think like the secret version of me was like the larrikin clown, like always having a good joke. And then the content version of me was like the sit in front telling some kind of boring business lesson. And then the people who knew me would be like, "Oh, is that really you?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know." And then someone was like, "Why don't you just be you?" And I was like, "Okay."
Yeah, and lean into it.
And now I just lean into it so hard.
Yeah, I love that. Now, we were talking about the research that I do on various guests that I have on this podcast. And I do like listening to stuff that you've talked about before and, obviously the work that you're doing outside of the job title that you have. But is there something, where I wanted to start was what is something that the internet doesn't know about you? Because I feel like there is so much out there that exists about Frank Greeff. What is something that the internet doesn't know about you?
I actually, I have the spiciest story, but like I'm just like recalibrating in my mind if I should say it.
I think you should.
No,
what happened to that filter? Leave it at the door.
Yeah,
Your secret's safe with me.
Okay, it's a good story.
Okay.
All right. So fucking hell, this is not good for anybody, but you asked it. I went to a private school for about 2.5 years. I won't say where. And we thought it was going to be hilarious if we sold a kid, I think we were in year 9, a Panadol and told him it was ecstasy.
Okay.
And we said, "Hey, bro, this is ecstasy."
Yeah.
And he was like, "Shit, yeah, I'll buy that." And so we did that. And then he tried to sell it to another kid, and the other kid was like, "This is clearly Panadol." And so then he told the teachers, and I was asked to leave.
Oh.
And the only reason that I moved to the public school that I ended up meeting my wife is because I sold a kid Panadol.
And described it as ecstasy.
Yeah. So that was my big move into drug dealing, which I quickly stopped. So there you go. That's one thing the internet doesn't know about me.
Well, they will now, which we love. We can add that. Now, you've spoken a lot about your exit for Realbase, and one thing that I said to you when we initially started talking about the podcast was, I don't want to talk about that because if you want to listen to any of your journey around Realbase, selling your business for 180 mil, and all of that, and your journey thus far, there's thousands of other podcasts and news articles that cover that. Just chat GPT it because there's heaps of stuff out there. But one thing that you haven't really touched on, and I kind of want to touch on a little bit to start, is this idea of reinvention. And I think looking at your journey, you've gone from a chef to real estate to tech, podcasting, content creating, investing. And along that, it's not a linear path. It's a very zigzag of, going into different industries and different disciplines. Have at any point you felt a feeling of like imposter syndrome or fraud where you're kind of moving into these spaces where you've admitted that you don't know a lot about them?
Yeah. So I never had imposter syndrome like through the process of building a business, but post-exit and restarting a couple of different things, I certainly did have it, and it starts to creep in. Like now with a new business, like very much like not in the last couple of months, but there's been moments where I'm like, oh no, like what have you done? Especially because everything's quite public. I mean, I'm not famous in any way, shape or form, but like public enough that, people around you know what you're doing. And then you go, oh, was that the right thing to say? Was that but I pretty quickly shrug that stuff off. I think that's it's the thing you get to have because you're doing something new. And the imposter syndrome is your mind's way of telling you this is new, you haven't done it, are you sure you can do it? And it's kind of keeps you on your toes. And I think that's a positive thing because if you go in everything blindly like, oh, I'm going to just absolutely crush this, you're going to very quickly be humbled. And one of my favorite examples of this is content. So I have been in I've been doing it for, 2.5, 3 years. And every time you go into a new channel, you go into that channel's jail, like the 200 view jail. And it's really cool because you have to have a lot of humility to be like, I've done all this stuff, but no one on this side of the world cares. Or the versions of that are doing a keynote and 12 people are there and you're like, wow, I mean nothing to nobody, but it's kind of good because then you get okay, I get to start at level 0 like everybody else did in this new game. And now that makes it that much sweeter when you can conquer that game.
Yeah. Is there anything that you've learned about yourself as you've transitioned into those different spaces that I suppose each transition has taught you something about you?
I think mostly the realization of the last couple of years is just realizing in some ways, shape or form, I'm a bit of a freak and a bit of a sicko, and not in the weird way, in a way that I have really realized and become comfortable, then I am obsessed and I'm obsessed and I follow my curiosity. And so I think the biggest realization is it's not necessarily a particular thing, and that's why it's not in a particular field at all times, but it's once I find that thing that I'm curious about, then I'll happily obsess over that thing until I try and air quotes master it. And so I think it's more just this comfort that oh yeah, I am not normal, and that's fine, and that's really cool. And so a great example is my brother and I, we spend so many hours together each week. We go for runs, and the runs might be a 3-hour run. And we won't talk about anything but business for the entire time. Or I make a joke most mornings when Kai comes into the car and I'll start business chat and then I'll say to him, how long did I last? He's like, oh, I don't know, 32 seconds. That's just who I am. And I've just become oh, I'm really comfortable with that because I love it.
Yeah. And I know recently you've also spoken a lot about obsession. I listened to your latest podcast episode with Charlie, who funnily enough, I used to work with at his first advertising agency as well. But in that, there was a lot of talk about obsession. Quick pause for a second. I just want to quickly interrupt to ask you one thing. If you are loving the content that you are listening to, make sure you hit subscribe or leave a review. I want to keep these podcast episodes ad-free for as long as possible. And the only way that I can do that is by you guys subscribing or leaving a great review or sharing it with a friend. So that's all I ask of you today. Now back to the episode. With obsession, do you feel like obsession has a finite amount of time before it becomes this monotonous thing that just continues to show up? Is there a way to, I suppose, differentiate between obsession and then that consistency of just being able to turn up when shit gets hard or it's not working? Because obsession is great when things are working and going your way and you're like, this is really cool and I'm learning new shit. But at what point, when you kind of know majority of the stuff, does that obsession have to just turn into discipline or rely on motivation to kind of keep you going?
I don't think they're binary, if obsession, then you can't have the other thing. I think it's one and the same. And I think it depends on what you're obsessed with. And I also think you could be obsessed with multiple things simultaneously. So I don't know if I've yet encountered that monotony. They've certainly encountered the tough times, but then I'm obsessed with the outcome, right? And then that's part of the process and part of the discipline. having a series of different goals, and those goals not necessarily always been in monetary, but like, like again, one specific example now is like recently starting YouTube, and now we're like so obsessed. We're like, okay, we're going to crack this. And like we spend so much time over the detail to go like, okay, something didn't work. So like we'll post a YouTube video. I'll see the outcome. It kind of plays out over like 2-3 weeks. During that time, we've done 10, 15 different thumbnail variations, title variations, trying to watch the data, and then come back and I'll do like a post-mortem. I'll write up like a 3-page doc and then get in the room with Jack and Kai and I'm like, okay, cool. Here's what we saw. How can we do it differently? And like, but that's one thing that we're like really obsessed by, and then so I don't think it runs out. I mean, I'll let you know. I'm 32 years old. So at the moment I'm good.
We'll report back. We'll do a 10-year check-in.
But it's just like, there's just a lot of those things that are kind of like stacked, and sometimes they take different amounts of cognitive load to kind of fill the cup.
And when you're building a business, like there's so many aspects of it, right? There's the actual business side of things and like functionally building the business. There's, in your case, you've got the tech side of things. But then you've also got your content, your YouTube, you're building publicly. Like there's all these other things that are kind of, yes, I would argue that they form part of building a business in today's world. How do you prioritize what's important when you're so obsessed about one thing? Like when you're hard into YouTube, do the other things take a backseat, or do you like prioritize the thing that you're obsessed with because you know that that's the thing that's going to move the fastest?
Like definitely prioritize. I think it's the way my brain works is kind of like what are the top things that can move the needle in the most dramatic way, and those are like I guess the bets that I'm making. Some of those you can't just use short-term data to go like the bet isn't working, and some of them are. And so I think anybody who tells you like they can do it all and they can do it all really well is a liar. And so like one great example is like recently we've had a real big shift into like really doubling down on the new business and the new product. So like over the last 3 weeks, I've probably done 50 software engineering interviews. I've got another 6 to go, and then we'll replace the team. That's taken up roughly 70% of my time. And the truth of the matter is that meant that content, as an example, has not been thought or planned or anything. It's just taken the back seat. And then so it's like we've kind of looked at gone, okay, like this is the most important thing. We still want to do this. And how do we do this in the simplest possible way? And so like one of the shifts we made is like we came up with the kind of the concept for our content as an example was compounding returns. So as a collective in the business, we're only doing content if it's actually compounding returns, i.e. we needed to do that thing anyway, and then we just filmed the content of that thing. Now that's actually meant that a lot of the content has actually like dropped off from like a total views perspective because it wasn't like planned and thought out, and it wasn't trying to cast the net wide, but it was like this has not be like this for this moment in time is no longer the top priority, and then so it has like cascading effects of everything else.
Yeah, right. Now I don't want to focus on, like I said, your history or what you've done, but is there a belief that you held early on in your career that you now know not to be true?
Yeah, I think the thing that I've harped on about, and I continue to do so, but has kind of shifted, is like speed at all costs. Like the number one thing about being about speed and like the ability to take an idea and execute it in as shortest period of time. I still value that like a lot. However, I now value thinking a lot more too, and spending a little bit more like intentional time to think through the steps, because like it used to be, we would have an idea for a piece of tech and like we just go out there and do it. And that's really cool. And then you get out and then you see it in the hands in 2 weeks' time, and customers have it, and then like they don't like it. Because why? Because you haven't done any of the thinking to make sure this is the right thing to do. And so now like Jacques and I will spend so much more time bashing ideas around. Now we're still trying to move forward, but at least try and like bash the ideas around, try and come in from different angles. It's what I found AI super helpful for, which is like take all of my thoughts, put it into ChatGPT, and then say like, what am I not thinking about? Like, what am I missing? If I was Steve Jobs, how would I think about this differently? If this company was building this product, how would they do it? And just so that when I then go into the doing, I don't have to like second guess because I've spent enough time.
What's one thing that AI has called you out on recently?
Yeah, this is a really cool one. So I asked ChatGPT, well, what am I not seeing? Like did like in a really critical way. And it said, your focus on content and founders table as a funnel to Kinso is really cool, but actually it's really cute because that is a very small number of people. And if you want to make a successful tech company, you need 100x that. So what are you thinking about the other 99% of people that aren't in your world? And I went, oh, fuck you, ChatGPT. I said, that's a fucking, I hate you.
Have you solved it yet?
I mean, we're on the pathway, we're on the pathway. So the big part, like I've never had to do in the previous business, like properly, is performance marketing, like from Google, Meta, et cetera, et cetera. So now the team were very kind of doing like day by day bets to upskill and learn that whole side of things, and then figure out how do we capture attention beyond our immediate funnel.
And it's so interesting because looking at a lot of the content that you have put out there and obviously your story to date, your relationship with risk seems to, I mean, the story that you shared at the very beginning of this podcast tells me that from a very early age, your relationship with risk was great. I
should caveat that was a bit of a joke, by the way. Like it happened, but we weren't trying to get into drug dealing. But anyway, it's in the internet now.
The internet has it. Have you always had a good relationship with risk?
Yeah, I think so. I do think so. I think a lot of the times in the early days it's kind of like, what do you got to lose? Because it's kind of like, yeah, it's kind of all good. And really, like I know some people that really are really like risked up or like leveraged and stuff like that. And so I look at them and I kind of go like, I'm not really that on a scale, like I don't have that much of a risk appetite relative to. And I think that's just that importance of like, who do you surround yourself with? Because from someone who's like, you know, wouldn't leave their 9 to 5, I look like, all the way over the other end of the spectrum. But to some of the people who do really big moves, I'm like fairly calculated in risk. But I'd say that's been pretty consistent. And a great example is like when we wanted to hire someone else, my eldest brother didn't want to do it. And so we dropped our salaries to $400 a week, Jark and I, so that we took the decision out of his hand because collectively that $800 could pay for someone. And so that was like, it just felt normal.
Yeah. Has there ever been a time that you felt really out of depth?
Yeah. All the time. But I'll share like
every day.
Yeah, I'll share recently.
Yeah.
Like recently, not this weekend, but last weekend. I don't really get anxious. It's a thing that doesn't happen to me, but I've started noticing these like little bits of waves of anxiety. And the reason why is because we have decided to self-fund the business now. And so that means it's going to require a lot of capital to the tune of our burn rate per month is $138,000. Our revenue is 0. And so I just started having these waves of like anxiety, and I was like kind of checking in with myself, and I was like, yeah, you're getting scared because like all of my like kind of short-term assets that pay me money, I'm liquidating. And I have a run rate of
I was going to ask you what your run rate is.
Yeah, I have a personal run rate. Before it, I have to sell assets that are fixed, and I have to sell them at whatever the market rate is, which I do not want to do. It's about $1.5 million. And so I was like, okay, but at that point in time, I'll be earning 0. I have a house and a family, and like we're all working off my dollars. And I was like, holy shit, okay, like this is a pretty big decision. And then so I just like during the week, I just started doing all the modeling to go like, okay, what does it look like? But yeah, like there's moments now in this business where it's really hard not to feel that way because we have the best and brightest investors in Australia, the Airtrees, the Square Pegs, the Blackbirds, and so on and so forth say like, no, we don't see it, and we're not willing to take a bet. And some like, you're wrong, like what you're doing is like you're making the wrong bet, as well as engineers who turn down the job because like, nah, this is not it. And then you got all of these people, and it's much harder. It's not like the internet. Like, I post like hate comments because I just think it's hilarious. But I don't like, people respond like, oh, you're right, don't feel down. I'm like, oh, don't, do not worry. But it's when it's a really smart person, the person who's backed Canva and Atlassian and this and that, you're like, oh, like maybe I am like being delusional and dumb. And then it's like, maybe I am in over my head because this is a different game now.
How do you troubleshoot that when it comes to like as somebody that has struggled with severe anxiety in the past, now I kind of use, like I say, anxiety is like the thing that makes me great at my job because it makes me think of plan A through to Z. No problems asked. Like if someone goes, oh, this doesn't happen there, what happens? And I'm like, this. And I have an answer straight away and I've been able to lean into it. But I have some key things that I'm like, when I'm feeling really anxious or overwhelmed, I like write a whole heap. Like I write lots. Like I put everything down on paper. I go for a big walk. I usually work out or listen to like good music. Is there anything that you have that helps you triage those thoughts in terms of what should you listen to and what's just noise?
Yeah, that's my relationship with my brother. Like, and that's why we do things like go for runs and talk about business for hours. Like, so we were like kind of halfway through the capital raising journey. We'd been beat down a couple of times. We then were like, we just made a decision. I just sent him a text on Saturday. I said, let's run a marathon tomorrow. He said, sure, let's start. And so we go for I think it was 4.5 hours. And all we're doing is tossing and turning and throwing back. And he's like, that's dumb. This is dumb. We're like, you know, and we're tossing back and trying to look from all the different angles and have that sounding board to kind of go, you know, like, and the biggest thing we just like came to the conclusion was like, we didn't have this last time because we weren't looking for external validation through the process of having to hire people and through the process of capital raising. And so therefore we were just in our own worlds and we just did what we needed to do without looking to anybody. And we were kind of like, we just need to get back there. We were just like, we need to tell them all to go fuck off. And we need to double down and just do our thing because yes, we could be delusional or we're onto something that others are not realizing.
Yeah. Okay. I am quickly interrupting to let you know that all of the good stuff lives in our emails. Cheat sheets, exclusive events, workshops that we run for our community that are centered around marketing, social media, and personal branding. You can sign up for our emails in the show notes. Back to the episode. And you've mentioned your brother a few times now, and I feel like
he's my boy.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he should be sitting here with you, but he's sunning himself, isn't he?
He's in Europe, the fucker.
Well, he's enjoying himself. Yeah. So are you, hopefully. Yeah. But they say don't mix business with family, or vice versa. Don't mix family with business. And in most people's cases, that's probably true.
Probably, yeah.
How do you manage the relationship that you have with your brother to ensure that you maintain your brotherly relationship, but then also a business relationship? Because there's so many stories that talk about friends getting into business together or family getting into business together and people kind of having those rose-colored glasses or not feeling like they can say anything because they're family or, you know, they'd be working in the best interests of the business. So A, do you think that everybody should work with family?
No.
And B, what makes your relationship different and how do you navigate that in business?
So A is a definitely no. So I've also got to see the other versions where like friends came in the business, we're no longer friends. Like I've had multiple of those. Like we just used to hire friends like exclusively. Some worked out really well, some did not. And so I've seen all the sides. With regards to the brotherly thing, it's like almost like slightly challenging me to think about it because that's like the only way I know. And I think it's a lot to do with because the starting position is our shared ambition. So we're both so fixated and focused on the thing we want to do that is like the starting position that, you know, okay, when we get into an argument, the argument isn't because, no, I'm right, you're wrong. It's like, no, I think this is the right way to get to where we want to get to. And then you think it's not. Like, so it's always the arguments when they've happened previously, they haven't really happened this time around so far. But like last time around, it was very much like the only reason we're arguing is just because someone believes so passionately in their position to get to that outcome. Yeah. And I think it's like that is probably the difference is like the what you're entering is you're both kind of crystal clear on it. But then also I think it's like if other people saw my relationship with both of my brothers, they probably think it's weird. So like, you know, like I couldn't give any advice because people were like, that's so weird because, you know, like I speak to my eldest brother, he lives in Kiama. We speak once a week probably. We chatted yesterday for 30, 40 minutes. We didn't talk about anything else but business the entire time. He started his own thing and I'm asking him questions. He's asking me questions. That's all we do. And other people would get the ick about that. They were like, that's so weird. Like, don't you guys talk about deeper, more blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, nah, we don't. But like, that's what bonds us and that's what we love. And that's what we can talk for hours and hours and hours over that. And I'm cool with that.
Yeah, I love that. I think when I look at it, you made a comment about friends that you've hired before around, they're no longer friends or some worked out great. And I think the hard thing with building a business initially is that the people that you have in that initial team, you spend so much time with, right? Whether they're family or friends or not, they become like friends because you're spending so much time together. So as a manager now that has a small team, or as a boss that has a small team now, how do you draw that line between friend, because I see your relationship with Kai, for example, like, you guys drive to work together, right?
Yeah. Every day.
Every day. And like, that's not normal boss and like person, or like, I mean, I know he's got some equity in the business, but that's not a normal relationship between somebody, an employer and an employee. So how do you manage that fine line of friend, and what's your view on it when it comes to being friendly with a team? Because it's really hard to disseminate between friend because you spend so much time together, but they also work for you.
The good piece to remember is I'm not normal. we start there.
No.
So Kai's a great example. Kai and I have been working together for 7 years. I don't see him as an employee. I see him as a partner now.
Sure.
And so I think he's probably quite different. With other people, like I have seen the bad side of this too, where it can really muddy things. I don't like how I draw the line, again, not consciously, is just my relationship with the people inside my business is mostly focused again around on business, but also on growth. And growth doesn't always come in the shape of a business all the time. And so what I mean by that is like I know that in order to get like really loyal people, I have to care about them. Now, my form of care doesn't come in of like, how was the weekend? Oh my God, tell me everything about that party or that thing or whatever, because I don't care. And they know that. And so like our small talk isn't that. But we'll talk about that for a minute.
Then you're like, now on to business.
But what I do care about is like asking, I'll take Talia as an example. Talia's awesome. And I'm asking Talia, like Talia and I are chatting, and maybe she's asking, one day I'll give you an example. We were on the plane and Talia saw I was writing these notes, and we'd just been spending 2 days in Queensland as a team. And she said, like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, I've just kind of doing my reflections. Like, what was the last 2 days been like? What could I have done better? And how do I want to improve? And she was like, wait, what the fuck? And then she was like, oh, tell me more. And then so like my focus on that conversation is like helping her, like, how does she grow? And then she goes, tells her boyfriend Chucky, and then she comes back and she goes, oh my God, me and Chucky are obsessed with that. We love that. And we're talking about that. And so like the friendship bond is more like me helping and bonding over the growth of that person. And that's how I think it shapes up. And then so then it doesn't have to be clear lines of separation. I'm not inviting them. I mean, I don't go to parties. I've got a 3-year-old child and another one on the way. So like they wouldn't want to be invited to anything I do. But like that's the kind of relationship. So it's quite clear compared to, I'm calling them for a chit chat and small talk.
Yeah, I get that. Now, do you one thing that keeps coming up that I feel and I've seen whilst following what you do, and do you struggle with people that don't have the same mindset about business that you do when it comes to conversations and meeting people or hiring people or investing in people? Do you struggle because you are so obsessed about what you do, and you are weird?
Yeah.
That you self-proclaimed weirdo.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Do you struggle having conversations with people who aren't as weird as you?
So I guess
for want of a better word.
Yeah, there's like multiple parts to that. So one would be the idea of like hiring someone and they're not sharing that. Jacques and I tell them in the interview, this is what you can expect by us. Because we have a bit of an expectations versus reality challenge, which is you see the Instagram and so that's what you expect and here's the reality. And we say like one of the things you'll have to like get really comfortable really quickly with is like we are obsessed and we're really comfortable with it. Like business is our sole focus, and what we're trying to do here is we're trying to find people who are weapon operators, who are inspired and want to grow as individuals, and they want to sit around other weapons. If that's not you, that's totally fine, but this is not the place. And so everybody knows exactly what they're in for. And so I don't like the struggle piece, no, because everybody who goes, they're opting in.
Yeah.
They're opting into like, this is the environment I want to be part of. The second part is like, do I struggle just like probably in general outside of work? Like a little bit. Yeah, like a little bit. Yeah. But I think of business like it's the vehicle for me and the vehicle for certain things. And one of the big ones is growth, like growth as a human. And so if I'm having a conversation that's stimulating with someone that isn't about people and things, then I'm cool. Like as long as I'm not sitting there and they're like, oh, what did he say? What did she say? Like I will mentally check out of that so quickly. Yeah. Or talking about, something really, really mundane. But if like any one of my friends, like I have friends who do like network security and I'll happily have a deep chin wag about that, provided it's like, stimulating and around like growth or something. Yeah. If it's just the really, really mundane stuff, then
checked out.
I've checked out, but also they don't want to be talking to me either.
They're like, he's not here.
Yeah.
Now we spoke about hiring and Talia's going to be on the pod, which is exciting.
I love that so much.
I think what I love about her and the content that she's going to be sharing will be in January, which will be the start of the new year. We have so many people message me, especially around career paths. Yeah. Like I'm thinking about moving careers or I'm thinking about going into marketing. Yeah. Do I need to go to uni? Like all of those questions. And I think that she's a great example of how differently you can do it and the power of determination, I think, and just being focused and obsessed on a couple of things or one thing. Now, we spoke about it briefly before. You mentor a 13-year-old boy.
It sounds weird when it comes out of your mouth, doesn't it? Yeah.
We chuckled about it because Frank was like, oh, I'm just about to put a TikTok up that says I spent the afternoon with a 13-year-old boy, but we can't say that. He's a 13-year-old boy that you're mentoring.
Yes.
You also have a team of predominantly Gen Z, I would say, or late Gen Z, early millennials. Yep. There's a lot of chatter in Australia generally of like Gen Z not wanting to work, Gen Z being, unmotivated, lazy, all of that. And I did an episode with Lauren Meisner, who's a Gen Z expert, which was so cool. And I just loved breaking down her kind of view on that. How do you see it? Because, some of Albie, 13 years old, building his own business, challenging what is currently being taught to him. You've got Talia who's doing things very differently, Kai who does things, differently as well. So it's like, what are you seeing? What's your view on that? I'm
like so bullish on the Gen Z. And I think one of the things that I think is the total blessing, and it's contrary to what a lot of people think, is content when put into the right direction is the most positive thing. Like all of the, so I have Braith, Talia, Kai. Recently I had started an awesome young gal by the name of Lulu. And they've all come really similar where they come to the office and like they had content and social media from like the age of high school. And if they pointed that content in the right direction, i.e., Talia talking about the abundance mindset in our job interview, and I'm going, what the fuck? And talking about like their side hustles because the side hustles are so cool. Or Albie, like he's watching Grant Cardone's like content about sales, and I'm going, what is going on? Because I had none of that in those times. And so I think it's been a really positive thing, and then therefore that shows up for them. Now with everything, there's like two sides of the argument. So like a lot of people were upset when I was talking about the 13-year-old mentoring because they were saying you should just focus on living and, blah, 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 whatever. And I'm just like, you should just focus on yourself, bro.
Yeah, you should focus on not commenting on my posts.
Yeah, that's right. But thanks for the engagement. And I think that's totally fine. All I care about is this, is like, provided they're not doing all of this stuff because it's scaring them and they want to, they're doing it for the wrong reasons. And that's, but like, I haven't seen that so far. I've only seen in the positive direction. And I think it's so cool to have already by the age of 20 been like thinking about yourself, thinking about how to get better and having that kind of mind set. Because I wasn't there at 20. Like I reflect when I was a chef, I was a little asshole and I thought I was so good at my job and I was so arrogant, but I spent no time trying to consume new ways of cooking. I just didn't even know that existed. And I only really started to think about and learn about content from the age of like 23, 24. So I'm like really bullish. And then it's really interesting to see like what does that next generation, like the Albie's generation, which is they start with AI and they start with like everything's possible.
It's so interesting. So when it comes to what you're looking for in terms of when you hire into your business, what 3 things are you looking for?
Well, I should start with saying it isn't just Gen Z, because then it'll look like I'm an ageist. You know, we've recently hired some engineers who are, you know, well into their 40s.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually think about it as sort of, it's about being young at heart and young in spirit. It's not an age thing.
The willingness to learn.
Yeah, like that's the thing that's way more important. Like I interviewed the a head researcher of the Children's Cancer Institute well into her 70s. And I'm sitting across the table for her, and she has so much life in her, and she's so passionate, enthusiastic. And I'm like, you have a spirit that is younger than so many 25-year-olds I've met. And I think that's where that's one that's really, really important. And the next is like hunger and drive. So like you have to be hungry and you have to be wanting to do something. Because like we you know, I tell the team, like, this is the place where you're going to work the hardest you've ever worked. And no seconds are like fluffy seconds. Like every moment is jam-packed, because at the end of this year, you'll look back and you'll laugh at how little you knew this year. And if we only... Every single year you should be looking back and laughing like, oh, that's so cool. I thought I was good, but like now I'm way better. And then the third thing is like, I do believe which is something that's shifted. It's even hard for me to get the words out, but like, I do believe in raw intelligence. The unfortunate truth is some people are not, and that's because of their own demise, because they haven't tried to do. I don't think I have raw intelligence, but I've spent so much time on trying to ingest and learn that then it can show up in that way. And I think that raw intelligence, when pointed in the right direction with the right drive and the right willingness, is a very dangerous combination.
I love that. If you are someone that doesn't have raw intelligence and you're not someone that is naturally like, you know, if you're not a bookworm or you don't naturally absorb information quickly, or
that's me.
What can you do as somebody that isn't somebody that is naturally intelligent? What could they do to be someone that then you would look at and go, they're someone that I want on my team?
Showing effort to try and learn. So I would put myself in that category.
Yeah.
That's why I feel comfortable saying it, because I'm not 150 IQ. Like I got 45 in my HSC. So like I'm the proper good dumb bum. So that's great. So therefore I feel comfortable with this. Like, but you can be raw intelligence, but then not have all those other things and you'll fall short. It's just like, for those people that aren't raw intelligence, those are even almost the better ones, because they have to spend so much time to like level up. And so I just think it's like, what do you know, one of the key questions we ask in these offset. Start again. One of the key questions we asked in the software engineer interviews over the last few weeks is, what do you do outside of work? Like, what is the learnings you do outside of work? And if you say, oh, I just occasionally, okay, you don't do anything, compared to people who are like, oh, I just can't stop tinkering. I need to try this, I need to try that, I need to learn this, I need to learn that. You can pick it up really quickly. So regardless of the raw intelligence or not, it's just like, how much time and energy do you spend in learning? And like, I can comfortably say, like, even now, 14-ish years into my career, I spend roughly 6-ish hours a week minimum trying to learn things in whatever shape and form that looks like.
I love that. Now, we're going to talk about Founders Table in a bit. I've got a few more questions, but with every person that you've met, whether they're people that are working for you, part of the Founders Table, interviews that you've done, are there 3 red flags that you have when it comes to individuals that you're like, I don't want to be around those people, or they're not the type of people that are going to go far?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I'll say yep with conviction.
Yep.
Like I know this because I have a list.
I came with them.
Number 1 red flag is telling me what you think I want to hear.
Ooh.
You know that feeling when you're either in an interview or you're having a conversation and you're like, everything is perfectly packaged up that you know that you think that's what I want to hear, and you're like, that is not what you believe.
Yeah.
And I'd say that is the highest of all of them, because then like, how can I trust you?
Yeah.
Number 2, bitching and complaining.
Ooh.
Like, I'll use the interview context again. Like, if you spend your time in an interview talking shit about, regardless if it's true or not, talking shit about your last employer, what they didn't do or how they didn't support you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, it's never a good sign. And it's usually going to be they're the victim, and whatever they do, they're going to continue to be the victim. And that can show up in many different places other than just an interview. Number 3. side note, I always get jealous of someone like Alex Hormozy when you ask him like, what's the 7 things? And he's just like, bam, 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 bam.
Yeah, it's like he's got them written on his hand.
Yeah,
I know. Cut this, we're going to go again. Take your time.
No, that's fine. I think like number 3, just a bummer to be around.
Yeah. Low energy.
Yeah. Like one of those people, and like you can be a person who's like pretty like a flatter energy. So I'll put Charlie in that category. Yeah. I love Charlie, but he's like a chill energy. Yeah. But it's like a good chill energy, I am not one of those.
But it's an inspired chilled energy. There's something behind the chill.
Totally.
It's not just chill.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Exactly. But those people that kind of like suck the energy out of the room, it doesn't matter what happens. Everything's a bit, everything's glass half full. Everything's just a bit, it doesn't matter the circumstance, whether it be friends, whether it be people in work, whether it be like whatever it is, like those, like you just got to run. I just run far away from those because I cannot deal with that.
Yeah. No, that's very fair. Now, I want to get onto what you're building now. The last question I have around what you've done. Do you ever worry with what you're building now that it won't reach that? Like you're talked about a lot in, I sold my business for 180 mil. It's how you start most of your content. Like that's, you lead with that and that's what gives you credibility because it gives you the legs to stand on to say, hey, what I'm about to say next, it works, right? But with what you're building now or next, do you ever worry that like your 180 mil was the peak?
Oh, yeah.
Every day.
Absolutely. I definitely do. And I've definitely had that thought. And I think that's that whole idea of like the, the one hit wonder or the, the professional gold medalist Olympian. But then I kind of quickly stop myself and I go, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't truly matter because all of that is purely like an external thing. And so what matters is like, what are the actions I'm doing? Like, what am I trying to do? Like, how am I trying to show up? And like, that's why the hate comments and stuff like that, I water off a duck's back. Cause I'm like, oh, but you don't know actually me and you don't actually see what I do and you don't actually see how much I care. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I'm very much in that vein. So like, I want to shoot for higher. Like I'm doing all of the things, I'm trying a lot harder this time. Like I'm putting so much more risk on the table to get a bigger outcome. And I do want that. But in the end of the day, it's okay. It's all going to be good. It's fine. Yeah.
Do you think like one of the things that I hear a lot of as like second time founders and startups and things like that is it's easy to make money once you've got money. Because as you said, you're burning through about $135K a month at the moment and you're not making any money. $0. So if you didn't have any money and you were starting from scratch again and you have no backing, you have no financial investment, where would you start?
What the money does is it can shorten a time horizon.
Sure.
So a great example is, we have a team of people now in go-to-market and work with us on content and stuff like that. You just have to do it.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so you just have to roll up your sleeves. Like we're getting a team of, within the next 2 weeks, we'll have a team of 5 engineers working the task. It would just be Jark. So just be like, just me on like go-to-market and that side of things and just Jark. And we're just doing what we did last time, which just takes a lot longer. So last time it took us 5 years to get to $1 million in revenue because we had no money. And so you just have to do what is required. And that's the trade-off you get to have with money is you get to buy time.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah. So for someone that's grinding away and they're maybe like 5 years in and they're like, fuck, he's just like spent the last 12 months, doing this, talking about it. Now everyone's talking about it. What advice would you have for someone that's still in the trenches? Obviously, there's a sentiment there that's like, just keep going because the longer that you're in it, the more chance of success you'll have. But for someone that's they're making money, they're doing okay for themselves, but they're not at that point that they're like, oh, this is good. What advice do you have for someone like that doesn't have the financial backing?
Of course. I'm always cautious with big sweeping advice-y statements without knowing someone's context. But I think it's pretty safe to say with anybody doing anything, you can always do it better. And so like I would audit what I'm doing to go like put down the 10 to 15 tasks I do most often. How can I do them faster? How can I do them better? What are the tasks that actually don't make sense that I'm doing? So a great example is, in those early days, let's say you're doing a couple $100,000 and you are doing, if you audit your tasks and go, this task can be solved with $30 an hour, and this task which generates revenue, I actually technically make $500 or $700 an hour, then why the fuck are you doing more of those $25 tasks? And so you can still leverage and use this idea of, shortening the time horizon, maybe not to as dramatic degree, but I think it's just like, if you're spinning the wheels constantly, it's just like look and audit and be like, how can I trim things and how can I shape things? One of the things I did in the back in Realbase is like did mentoring for a young gal who wanted to be a founder. She wanted to start a marriage celebrant business, and I said like, cool. She said, how could I do it with having a full-time job? I said, open up your phone, let's look at your screen time. Boom, 5 hours, 3 hours on TikTok. Okay, great. Well, I just got you 3 hours back in your day.
Yeah.
And so I just think it's like you just have a really truthful, honest audit. And like I can say that happily because I do this to myself all the time. And I still pull myself up on these things. But that's probably the biggest thing is like you in those early days, you are the leverage. So then how can you leverage yourself better?
Yeah, I love that. Now we're talking now what's happening. Like Kinso, you're building it very publicly.
Oh, yeah.
For anyone that doesn't know, give me your elevator pitch. What is Kinso?
So right now, if you check out the website, Kinso is this AI assistant. The truth of the matter is the AI assistant is almost a comical thing because so many people are in the market, there's so many tools, so many people are entering. What we're actually building, and we haven't yet disclosed publicly on YouTube, but I feel comfortable here, is we're an AI messaging aggregation tool. So the problem is today that business lives outside of just email and Slack, and it also happens in LinkedIn, in Instagram, in WhatsApp, and beyond. And so the problem is a person opens those up 5, 10, 15 times a day, and the more you have, the easier it is to lose them. And so what we're doing is we're going to aggregate all of those messaging applications into Kinso. So you'll have one application. We will then be able to, through all of that conversation, that context, infer what your goals are at a particular point in time and understand you, the user. And then we will prioritize those messages based on your goals. So we want to create that moment, like that ChatGPT moment where, when you first used it and you typed a question in and it gave you the answer and you're like, wait, why did I used to use Google? It gave me 12 links. Of course I just want the answer. We want to have that moment with messages, which is like, why would I open up 5 apps and go most recent or most relevant and try and sort through the shit? Instead, of course, I want the messages that are most important to me stack ranked. And from there, that's when we get to kind of expand out.
Love. Now, you've chosen to build publicly.
Oh, yeah.
Very publicly.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting because I'm a big advocate of just sharing everything. Like one thing that I love about social media is that one thing that I'm very conscious of with what I share is I share the highs, the lows and everything in between, because I think that far too often business content is like, I bought this Lamborghini or look at my massive house or like I make 10 grand in a week. And it's like, yeah, but you then also have to pay taxes, your team, like blah, blah, blah. Like you're not making 10 grand to go and spend that week. So I'm very conscious to keep it balanced and honest, just because that's the type of person that I am in real life. Why did you choose to build it so publicly?
One of the primary reasons is actually because our last business, we didn't document anything because we were like fully kind of ashamed of the process.
Yeah.
And for us, it was kind of a bit of a bummer to look back and go, oh, like I got nothing.
Yeah.
And so this is like our own personal, like how cool would it be if we can like put a mark in the sand and say, this is what we want to do, and then document it, and then you look back and like, we did that. And then we got to like see the strategy play out. That was one reason. The other one was because attention is the new currency and attention is very powerful. And the reason I believe attention is so powerful, like yes, customers is good, but it's the talent that you can attract. Because every single person, when they're going to apply for a job, are going to Google my name, just like I'll Google their name. And what are they going to see? They're going to see all of this stuff, like really well-rounded about the business, the little bit of jokes here and there with content. And they're going to see all that. And then I'm going to have an unfair advantage to the market because I'm going to be able to get the best people.
Yeah.
And to me, that is the gold.
Yeah.
And that's why, like the building public's really like it's the attention piece, which I think it becomes, that's how we cut through the noise compared to everybody else. I just spat on the microphone, everybody there. Just
with that, obviously building publicly or sharing anything publicly for that matter has its downsides, right? I'm a big advocate of sharing everything and just copying the consequences, like when shit goes south or things don't work out the way that you wanted or, people don't reply to your TikTok or whatever. But we've seen it recently with the Who is Elijah. I don't know if you've seen the Who is Elijah, Sarah's Day fallout, and nobody knows what really happened except for those two individuals, right? But there is a narrative now that exists that's like she was going to have a perfume collaboration, now she's not, and for whatever reason it's not gone ahead. People have chosen their sides. So there are lots of downsides that come with building publicly. How are you going to navigate any negatives that come with building publicly? Obviously you address the hate comments and you cook them as part of your lunches, your son's lunchbox. But hate comments is one thing, but then it actually affecting business sales or business uptake or, conversions for people because there's this negative sentiment in the media about it. How do you see yourself managing that?
So we already have. So we released the most recent build in public, the capital raise video, before our capital raise was finished. Right?
Yeah.
We just fucking released it.
Couldn't wait.
And then the next investor went and watched it and they got the ick. They didn't like this concept that like we would be filming them and talking about it. So they didn't like that. And that feedback came back to me.
Investor ick.
Yeah. And so I just think about things a little bit too simply, which is what is the net positive and the net negative and which one outperforms the other.
Yeah.
And I truly believe the positive outperforms and so I'm cool with it.
Yeah.
And then if you take like the macro stuff, which is like a fallout there, and I bloody love Raquel. So I just can't see anything other. Yeah, she's just the best. So shout out to Raquel.
If you are loving this episode, don't forget to leave a comment or hit that subscribe button. You have no idea how much it means for podcasters like me to get a like or subscribe, because it means that we can get better guests and we can get into more ears of people to help talk to them about marketing, social media and personal branding. Now back to the episode.
Here's the truth. No one will care about, not talking about their situation, but like things that fall out. No one cares. It moves on.
Yeah.
And 1 week, 2 months later, it just goes back to rosy times. I spoke to the, I have in one of my CEO groups, the Optus CEO. And they had that big fallout with the data breach, right? Now that's real shit.
Real shit.
That's where
Shout out to Qantas.
Yeah, that's 15 or 20 million Australians and you're getting dragged through the mud with the media and the journalists are attacking you. That's the real stuff. And he said to me, Frank, you know what people really don't like? And I go, what's that? Data breaches. He goes, you know what they really like though? Great deals on phones. And like things, it was the shittest time ever. But then we just made it up through doing a good job with our customers, doing good deals. And now now they do surveys. What do people remember? They can't even remember if there's an Optus breach. They remember like what your last phone bill was. They remember, and it's had like a tough time in a moment and now it's okay. Sorry, it's actually not the CEO, it's the managing director. I should correct myself. And that's why I kind of think like, I think sometimes we can get a bit obsessed with ourselves that we think people care about us.
No one cares.
No one cares. No. It's like why my team says like, "Wow, my God, like you are just comfortable putting your face looks real dumb in that video." I'm like, yeah, you know what? No one cares.
No.
They're going to just move on with their life.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. Like the cycle happens so quickly that even if, all these things happen built in public and we say it's $1 billion and it doesn't get there, everyone's going to move on.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
And I did that with one of my team recently who was really scared of putting themselves on camera.
Yeah.
And I was like, go, we're on George Street, our office, right? I said, walk out onto George Street, hold your camera up and film for 30 seconds. Yeah. I guarantee you no one will look at you. No one will say anything. No one gives a fuck.
Yeah.
Like no one cares.
Yeah, they got their own
and
life.
it's like everyone's so preoccupied with what they're doing that they actually don't care about it. And I think it's those people that enjoy talking about other people, as you said before, people you don't like, that are involving themselves in those situations. And I think it's a great answer for that. Now, you're clearly building momentum with what you're doing. There's a wave behind you and it's building. What are you still figuring out?
Oh, so much. A lot of the bets we're making this time around, and very intentionally, are things we've never done before. So a really big bet is, in order for this to work, we need to go international, and really international for us means break the US market. We've never done that. And so part of what we're trying to figure out at the moment is like through the content, like the first tranche of attention, how do we get the attention of the USA market? And how do we make, so we looked at the first YouTube build in public, it hit America, the second one didn't. We're like, what do we do wrong? What are we doing? And so like, that's just one part. I try not to fix that in content too much because I don't want myself to just be the content guy.
He's a content king.
But like that is like, beyond the content, breaking through to America and like making sure that, for example, the beta users are not just Australian beta users, so that it pushes us into solving Australian problems. It has to push us into solving American problems. And then what does that look like? Does that mean we have to go like travel there very frequently? Are we spending a lot of time there? I don't know is the answer. And so we gotta have to figure that out. The next thing is all around the marketing element, again, beyond content, is like, looking at some of the companies that have happened recently, like I don't know if you've heard of Lovable. So Lovable is like the vibe code, say what you want to say, boom, build you an app. So cool. They've been out for 8 months and they're worth $2 billion. They were growing at 2 or 3 million recurring revenue a week. What the fuck do you get to play? How do you play at that game? How do you play at that scale? We launched our wait list 2.5 weeks ago. It's on 1,200. It's growing 100, 150 people a day. Pretty cool. But I'm like, it's nothing.
I need millions.
Yeah. Like that is literally nothing. Like, there's another one, I think the Superhuman, the email thing before they launched, they had 100,000 people on the wait list. What does that look like? And I'm like, how do we do that? And so a lot of the focus now is like trying, like we were doing like week on week bets with the team. So I got the team to do independent go-to-market strategies, then kind of combine them together. Remember, they're 20 years old. Their first job. They have no idea.
They're like go-to-market?
Yeah.
Which market?
Which market are we going to?
Are we going to get a deal?
Is it Woolies? Is it Coles? What do you need me to buy?
Paddington Markets?
And so what we're doing is we're making these like micro bets to go like, okay, in order to get to our goal, which is we want to have 10,000 on the wait list by launch, what are the things that we can do that can like outperform? And so last week was a bet, which was like, okay, AI influencers, interesting space. Let's see if we can do that at scale. This week is completed. We're like, this is not it. Throw that in the bin. There's now another one we're looking at. Have you heard of a company called Cluely? Yeah. So Cluely used $2.5 million of their recent raise to put together 10,000 Instagram and TikTok accounts.
Wow.
10,000. And so what they've done is they've taken all their content and they use what they call clippers, and the clippers go and then redo all the content and then drop it off in channels. So you think of your channels almost like so you think of your page as almost like a channel, and you do one really specific micro niche on there. And the bet they're making is 99.7% of the content will go into the 200 view jail and just 3% will outperform. And so now they're getting 1 billion impressions a month.
Wild.
Yeah, and they've been out for a couple of months and they're doing 5 million revenue, 5 million recurring. So like those are the things we're trying to figure out is like what are the outsized bets that we can make right now to get us, because what we're doing is fine, but it's not going to get us to where we need to get to.
Fair.